be best ever conference in ETUC history. Of course, the most important is resolution on economic crises and particularly the role of higher education in combating this.
The expectation is meeting a lot of nice colleagues and sharing experiences.
We are going to meet our colleagues from ETUC, other unions, and began discussing the documents, policy papers, and everything.
I'm also very looking forward to the discussion on the teaching profession and the future of it. I hope that we can leave Budapest and feel that we are a strong union movement for teachers.
I was at my first European conference in 1980. So during these years, it's been an extremely interesting time. At that time, there were several global organizations in Europe. When we visit each other between the teachers' organizations in Europe, we always find that our problems are mostly in common. We may be at different points of development, but generally we are talking about the same issues.
I will retire, and this is a new step in my life, and I know that I have only one time to change.
We are living in a very strange environment and situation. Not only because we know financial and economic and social crisis, but because it's a crisis of values. We have to convince people that we need more and more education and training for everybody.
The biggest challenge for us now is employment and youth unemployment. If there is no solution to this employment problem and to youth unemployment, then we're going to see big doubts about the European project, which will be considered as destroying the social model that we have been creating along the 50 or 60 years.
We have real and practical solutions. We now need to put these ideas and solutions into action. We will call upon our entire membership, teachers and education workers around the globe, to stand up for public schools.
In far too many cases, the response of governments to the crisis has been to undermine hard-fought-for social standards, dismantling collective bargaining, cutting wages, pruning pensions and social benefits, deregulation, laying off of workers, and introducing more poor quality and precarious jobs for those who are lucky enough to remain in employment. At the heart of high-quality education is high-quality teachers. And we as teachers have to be central to any debate that is going on in any place about education.
I think we're trapped in a spiral of recession and declining wages and declining public services, and it's clearly not working. If you look across Europe, you see many countries who are just on a downward spiral. So I think the answer is for public investment, to make sure we get the public services we deserve, and also to make sure that we collect all the tax revenue that we can collect. And some of the ideas circulated today about the financial transactions tax and making sure the corporate sector pays its fair share are really important.
I've been a trade unionist all of my working life. I started off in a very small rural community in the north coast of Scotland in the Shetland Islands, and worked my way up through the national organisation and onto the international scene. And it's been overall, I think it's been a huge experience, a huge benefit, and the only thing I hope is that when people come to judge my own performance, that if they think I've contributed even 50% of what I've gained and benefited, then I would be very happy if that was anybody's judgment. I think I'm going to find retirement quite difficult, because the truth is that when you come to let go all of this work, you realise how much you were involved in it and committed to it, and how much you actually enjoyed it. And one of the great benefits is meeting people from such a wide range of backgrounds and circumstances. And you look ahead with some uncertainty and some trepidation, but I think it's right for the organisation that there is new blood, that we do refresh and renew and develop in the years ahead. So it's time to go, but there will be challenges in making that adjustment.
I'm delighted to have been elected as president, and I'm very pleased to say that I had, in putting in my nomination, I had achieved obviously the support of my own organisation, but also of all of the unions from the British and Irish group. So my first step will be obviously to make sure that I say specifically thank you to them when I'm back home after the end of the conference. But I think moving forward, the first steps are that I absolutely need to understand exactly where we are on all of our campaigns. I'm very much looking forward to my first visit to Brussels so that I can meet and talk with all of the staff, because clearly the staff of any organisation are absolutely critical to being able to achieve its mission. And absolutely we have to go forward together. A coherent voice from the whole of the teacher trade union movement across Europe is absolutely critical to making sure that we have the kind of social policy, obviously in education, but also in housing and social support, social solidarity of all of those kinds. So I shall be looking to work with everyone, and I hope it will be a very productive period.
One of the significant things is how many more people are involved in what has become a collective endeavour. In the early years of ETUCE, small groups of people worked in relative isolation and produced documents that finally came to a conference like this. Now increasingly there's continuous work by more people working between the constituent unions and the centre towards a more authoritative, more complete set of policy proposals and ideas for action, which is hugely important. I've been asked by colleagues in certainly the higher education constituency at European level if I would be available for doing some things. If I'm asked, I will do them, although I'm not entirely sure I will be asked. Once you've gone, you've gone. A colleague here said, "Paul, you should write a book." And I said, I'm happy to write a book, but who is going to read a book of trade union memoirs? I don't know. There may be a market for that.
The participants of today's seminar, they were representatives, both employers and employees. And the idea to organize this seminar was to get the feedback on the first results of the survey on development of teaching profession in times of crisis.
The Commission says education, development and that kind of things have to be the priority. It's probably the opposite what governments do in the nation states.
I think it is primarily at the national level where we have the problems. It's with the ministries, with the ministers and the governments and stakeholders, and especially teachers, should be consulted when we are talking about reforms.
We as social partners have the responsibility to help making sure that our schools are excellent learning communities with professional teachers. And the challenge is, of course, to equip all teachers, not just some, for effective learning in this 21st century.
For my country, we have a big problem how to continue, how to keep on making professional development when we are in front of a lack of money.
The economic crisis has brought along a social crisis, and very many families have to work long hours. They have not enough quality time for their children, and that's why teachers are the ones who have to find time to listen to them.
I think really there is a need to do something to improve the status of the teaching profession in Europe. That would be my personal conclusion.
The education system needs new people, so it's very good to think about how to attract them and what's holding them back.
There are a few countries where the profession is very prestigious, it's like Finland or Ireland, for instance. But in many other countries, the teachers themselves, but also other stakeholders, think that this image of the teaching profession in the society is not as good as it used to be.
One of the things that I spoke about today is the development of a professional learning community in a school. And this has a couple different benefits. A professional learning community is where teachers have the opportunity to share a vision for learning at their school, to open up their practice and reflect on their practice with other teachers at the school, and to collaborate in deep and meaningful ways. In this time of economic crisis, it's often difficult for schools to send teachers out of the school for professional learning activities. It's too expensive, they can't afford the supply teachers to take over. And if there's a professional learning community at the school where teachers are working together with the goal of improvement, this alleviates the need to send them out of school on expensive professional development where they're not even in their own context.
Our role as social partners is to make sure that the skills of our teachers, our professors, our researchers and our school leaders are excellent, are up to date and modern.
We're going to campaign throughout the whole next year intensively on quality in education, quality in public education and on the teaching profession.
I believe that this collaboration between unions together with the employers can be very fruitful.
Education for all! See how far we've come. Since 2000, the number of children out of school has dropped nearly in half. 50 million more children have been given a chance at education, a chance that may never have come without a concerted global effort. But that also means tens of millions of students aren't in school. More generations left behind. Their nations denied participation in the prosperity that comes with an educated populace. We know our history. 65 years ago, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights said, "Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms." We know our politics. Too often, it's blame the educators. But facts are very stubborn. Quality education for all requires investments in quality teaching through training, continuous professional development, decent salaries, and the tools and environments to facilitate teaching and learning.
Sono Noemi Ranieri del UIL, Scuola, Sindacato Italiano dell'Istruzione e della Formazione. Per fare una educazione di qualità occorre valorizzare e riconoscere il prezioso lavoro che gli insegnanti svolgono nelle classi a contatto con i loro studenti e aggiornare e modernizzare le metodologie dell'insegnamento-apprendimento mettendo i giovani al centro dei processi.
Je viens du syndicat des enseignants bulgares, mais en même temps je suis présidente du comité permanent des femmes et de l'égalité, surtout, qui a changé le nom. Et je voudrais dire quelques paroles pour notre campagne, qui est une campagne très réussie pour la qualité de l'éducation et où l'égalité a trouvé une place très importante. Parce que la qualité, c'est le progrès social, c'est la société, c'est le développement. Et assurer l'égalité, cela veut dire assurer vraiment une bonne éducation. Et ça, l'international le fait d'une façon merveilleuse. Nous sommes réunis ici pour prouver cela.
Wir sind davon überzeugt, dass die Ausbildung der Lehrerinnen und Lehrer in den nächsten Jahren im Vordergrund stehen muss. Dafür ist es notwendig, dass die Regierungen Geld in Bildung und in das Training von Lehrkräften investieren. In Deutschland wird es für uns deswegen eines der wesentlichen Schwerpunkte der Arbeit der nächsten Jahre sein.
I'm the Vice President of Vocational Educators and Trainers Union in Finland. So, I'm a vocational teacher. The most important thing, I think, in quality of vocational education is to be near my students. I teach them theory and practice. I guide them, I counsel them, I mentor them.
Alors nous, à l'UNSA Éducation, pour cette campagne unie pour une éducation de qualité, cette année en France, on va appuyer la refondation de l'école de la République en essayant de faire que chaque jeune, chaque enfant puisse avoir droit à la réussite et qu'on remette la réussite de chaque élève au centre de notre système éducatif. On a 2 chantiers prioritaires, la reconstruction d'une formation des enseignants de qualité et la mise en place d'un socle commun qui permette que chaque jeune soit doté du bagage lui permettant d'exercer sa citoyenneté et de s'insérer professionnellement. C'est notre objectif pour l'année, c'est comme ça qu'on sera nous aussi unis pour une éducation de qualité.
I'm the Vice President of the Teachers Union in Denmark. I'd like to say that the Danish Union of Teachers will support the Global Year of Action because quality in education is based on well-qualified teachers who are also recognized and supported by their communities. So today, Danish parents and students greet their teachers, saying them, "We really appreciate what you're doing." And I think that appreciation should be spread out to all teachers in the world.
I'm the General Secretary of the National Union of Teachers in the UK largest teachers' union. We are currently engaged in a dispute with our government on pay and pensions and conditions. We believe, as does Education International, that teachers must be well paid, they must have the tools for the job, and they must work in good environments. That's why we are campaigning on pay and pensions and conditions.
Soy responsable internacional de la FECO y también miembro de la Internacional de la Educación. Hoy es un día muy importante para todos los docentes, para todos los centros y también para la educación, pero es un día también importante en lo reivindicativo y en la movilización. Reivindicativo porque le exigimos a los gobiernos que apuesten por la escuela pública y también en cuanto a la movilización porque hoy es un día donde empieza la movilización de los docentes por mejorar la calidad, por mejorar la igualdad y por mejorar sus condiciones laborales. De hecho, en España estamos en plena movilización, aprovechando este Día de la Educación, para reivindicar mejora en la escuela pública, de la calidad, sobre todo con la igualdad para que no haya segregación y sobre todo las mejoras de los docentes. Por eso, en este día hemos planteado una marcha por la educación, hemos planteado también una huelga el día 24 de octubre y también una recogida de firmas con toda la comunidad educativa para apoyar la educación de calidad, la educación pública y sobre todo las condiciones laborales y profesionales de los profesores. Porque los profesores, como dice la IE, no son un problema, es la solución y el futuro de los países. Gracias.
Colleagues, friends, welcome to the end of the beginning. The world is watching today as our chain of events around the world unfolds, ultimately delivering in a few days to the United Nations a message about quality education for all. Across the world, the educators of the world, represented globally by Education International, 30 million strong, are gathering to send this message on its way. We started in Sydney last week, on to Delhi on Friday, in Pretoria, South Africa on Saturday, here in Brussels today, tomorrow in Buenos Aires, and then on to New York on Thursday. And we are taking that message to the United Nations. We are saying that the policies governments create and that the priorities they set matter to real people. They matter to our students. They matter to their parents, their communities, and to their nations. And of course, they matter to us, because as educators, there is no higher priority than the success of our students, each and every one of them. One thing is abundantly clear. You don't want to outsource quality. Education is a human right and a public good, and it is the responsibility of governments to provide free, quality public education for all. In Europe today, for instance, we are concerned about the consequences of the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, TTIP, which is currently being negotiated by the European Union and the United States. We are concerned that some people think commercial agreements like TTIP should apply to public services, including education. Rules in trade agreements threaten to lock in and intensify the pressures of commercialisation and privatisation, eroding the policy space necessary to ensure every child, youth and adult has access to quality education from preschool to university. And that is why here in Europe, but also around the world, educators with one voice have said to governments, our right to education is not for sale. Education must not be included in commercial trade agreements. Because of our firm conviction that quality education is a right and is not for sale, educators from all over the world have joined together to unite for quality education. And that is why we are here today. That is the message we bring here and that we take to the UN in a few days. Because Education International began the Unite for Quality Education campaign nearly 18 months ago. We collected the stories and voices of millions of the world's educators. And these stories illustrate the message that quality education for all is critical for prosperity, for peace, and for justice. It has never been more powerfully delivered to the world's most important deliberative body. When we looked across the global landscape, we could see that efforts to meet the basic goal of education for all were falling short. It is not enough to just get children into schools. As the global organisation representing professionals in education, we knew that the quality of the educational experience which children received in schools was vital. And that is why we have insisted on quality education for all. So we seized our own opportunity to define solutions, not only for the tens of millions who never get to school, but also for those who are in school but are not learning sufficiently to take their place in society. Our solution is quality education for all, accessible to all and free to all. We have deliberately decided that as the world's largest education organisation, we would help lead a global discussion about quality in education, beginning with our own members. 30 million educators represented by Education International from more than 170 nations. We focused squarely on 3 pillars of quality that we, teachers of the world, see as the critical elements to putting students on a path from poverty to participation and leadership. The 3 pillars are quality teachers and teaching, quality teaching and learning tools and resources, and quality environments for teaching and learning. 3 pillars, simple yet powerful. Quality teaching, tools and environments. Simple yet so out of reach for so many. Start with access. We know the importance of access. Despite the best efforts and even heroic efforts of our colleagues and children and families in many parts of the world, millions of children are excluded from school. In India alone, school is unreachable to more than 30 million children between the age of 6 and 14. They are excluded because of the high costs of education, because of all the work that they have to do at home, or because of the school being too far away and the roads too dangerous. Globally, millions of children are on the move because of war or violent attacks from insurgency groups. No, access to education can never be taken for granted. But it is not enough. We know that access without quality can be meaningless. By itself, crossing the threshold of a school is no guarantee of learning or of a safe and positive school experience. So we opted to be bold. We decided that our duty to our students, to our members, and to the world is to stand for goals that are meaningful beyond simple metrics, goals that are commensurate with what we know, that an educated populace can make a dramatic difference to the social and economic success of a nation. Colleagues, education does more than reduce poverty and hunger across generations. It improves health outcomes, especially for mothers and children. It improves the economic health of nations and the sustainability of entire ecosystems. It raises the likelihood of peaceful resolution of conflict and it enhances participation in the democratic process. This is the power of quality teaching, quality tools and resources and quality environments, not just for the privileged, for those who have the money to pay for education, or for those who live in the right neighbourhood, but quality education for all, of a calibre envisaged as the world emerged from decades of global war to agree on the United Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Quality teaching means that all students are taught by teachers that are trained and professionally qualified, and that are supported in their work by basic labour rights, decent salaries and working conditions, and continuous professional development. We know that this is not just what we want as teachers and educators, it is what teachers and educators and education workers deserve, but that it is what also our students deserve. Quality tools are necessary for both the teaching and learning. It starts with pencils, notebooks and school books, but should also include information and communication technology. We know that our students will need to know how to use a computer and that our schools and education systems are often failing them in this regard. Quality learning environments are safe and supportive. This is about our right to a safe school building and a desk for every student. It is also about our right to drinking water and bathrooms for both boys and girls. All of these things are needed if we want the students to be able to focus on learning and if we want to be able to teach effectively. The call for quality grows louder every day, and it is not coming only from educators. Students, their families and their communities are demanding the right to quality education, their right to participate, and their right to succeed in building the future. Colleagues, there is still a long way to go. More than a year until the United Nations finally agrees on a new development agenda. But it is not too early to note that the progress to date has been accompanied by an unprecedented mobilisation of Education International. We, the educators of the world, have tirelessly focused the world's attention on such things as the shortage of trained teachers, the shortage of classrooms, and the shortage of resources for quality education. But we aren't stopping. This is only the end of the beginning. And that's the message I will be delivering to the United Nations, speaking for the 30 million educators Education International represents through its affiliates in a few days from now. The education community has mobilised, and we will stay vigilant that education for all becomes a reality. Thank you.